Hi. So now that we've gone through and we've seen some of the theory and we've done this the pen and paper style without any technology to help us, I want to show how to do these calculations on, well, a calculator. This is the thing that you most likely will be using if you have one. And I want to make sure that you're doing this correctly and easily and efficiently. And so the easiest thing, kind of as an example, let's just and let me change a setting here really quick. Um, let's just put in the number 5,000. There we go. I hit enter. It just spits back out 5,000. Let's say I wanted to put down the distance from Earth to the sun, though. This 150 billion, or 1.5 times 10 to the 11th. So that's 15 with 10 zeros after it. I can read right here. I have 3, 6, 9, and then an additional 0. So I can just go ahead and count them really easily that way. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I hit enter, and ta-da! It already gave it to us in scientific notation. The calculator kind of has a limit of zeros where it goes enough is enough, and it will just automatically put it in scientific notation. Now, if you had 150,000 though, it's still going to give you 150,000 when you might want that in scientific notation. And so what you could do is you could poke it into the calculator this way, push all the buttons, put all the zeros, and then you can push this second key, this little light blue key right here. And it says second in the lower portion of my screen at least. I'm using the same calculators that we have in our classroom. Yours may be different. You might have to do a little fiddling if you have a different one personally at home to make sure yours works the same. But then after I've hit the second key, then I want to push this DRG, the dirge button. It actually means degrees. But if we look here, we see that the second function for it says psi/eng. That's for scientific notation or engineering notation, or even if we push the second button, I see it there, and then I push this again, a floating decimal, that's decimal notation. That's kind of this version with all the zeros included. Or we can go right over to scientific notation and then hit enter, and it just spits it out. It does it nice and cleanly for us. So I could go and I could put in my 150,000 and it'll do it for me. But let's say I don't even want to put in those zeros. Let's say I want every number to I want to know how to automatically put it in as scientific notation. I want to know how to type it in as, maybe I want to type in 1.5 times 10 to the 11 meters, let's say. Well, if I want to do that, then what I would have to do is know how to do this times 10 part. So 1.5, that's easy. We can do that part very cleanly here, really easy. But now there's 2 or 3 different ways to do the times 10 part. And my preferred way that makes sure it always follows order of operations is to hit that second key again. Now I'm in scientific notation. I have the second function active. That's what that means. And I want to do times 10 to the 11th. I want to do this distance from the Earth to the sun, this 1.5 times 10 to the 11th. So I have the second function active, and I'm going to push the button, not the 7, but the one above the 7. And it'll put a little E here. Now, on a lot of calculators, it'll say capital E, capital E. And so when you push it, what that really means that I have here is I have 1.5 times 10 to the. That's what the E means. So it's times 10 to the whatever power you're then going to push in. So we want times 10 to the 11th. So I put 11. And so this means 1.5 times 10 to the 11th power. And we hit enter. And there it is. It's the same with negatives. If I wanted to do this next number we looked at, this 1.00692 times 10 to the negative ninth here from the notes video itself, well, I could put in 1.000692. I'd go second EE, so this is this number times 10 to the negative, this bottom one down here, this little minus, that's the negative, to the negative ninth. And I push that, and there it is. It's really that easy. But maybe you don't see this EE button for the function for any of the buttons on your calculator. Well, there's a second way we could do this one. So instead, we could have said 1.000692, and this is the delete button, by the way. It'll just delete any number you want. And then instead of the EE button, I still have to hit the second key though. And then I want to push this one, not the log button, but the second function for the logarithm is 10 to the x. So it's 10 to whatever power you want. So I push that, and I see I've lost my first number, but I know that that was correct anyway. So I have this number times 10. And this little caret here means lifted to whatever power. And now we want to put -9 and then close my parenthesis. And I hit enter, and it did the exact same thing. So there's two different ways to do this, and using these two will always follow order of operations. I mean, when I say that it will follow the order of operations, I mean it will treat all of this number times 10 to the whatever power, as one number actually in and of itself, and it will keep that separate from any other numbers that you're multiplying this from or dividing this by or adding it to, and make sure it all stays grouped together. And so let's move on and actually try some of these. Let's try this first one for the adding and subtracting. We did this 7.450 times 10 to the 7th plus 2.1 times 10 to the 5th. Now, we don't even need to get the same power for them. We can just enter them in as is. And since we have it in scientific notation up here, that's what it says here, it'll just spit out the answer in scientific notation for us. So I want to go and write both of these here. So I have 7.450 second e, so that number times 10 to the 7th, plus 2.1 second e, that means 2.1 times 10 to the, and now I want the 5th power. And I can just hit enter. And we get 7.471 times 10 to the 7th. That is exactly what we already got when we did this just kind of pen and paper method. And so it's pretty clean, pretty easy. It's the same thing with subtracting, and you just would use negative exponents if they're negative exponents. You just would have to remember to use this little minus sign right here. Now, when it gets to multiplying and we get to dividing, it's pretty similar. Let's say that we want to do, let's do two of these. Let's do this first one. 4 times 10 to the 3rd multiplied by 3 times 10 to the 6th. Well, 4, and if you want to do it the other way, second, hit the log, times 10 to the 3rd, but now I have to close the parentheses, times 3 log times 10 to the 6th. And we get 1.2 times 10 to the 10. Don't forget there's actually a little tiny 10 right here before this 10. This is the power of 10. This is the times 10 right here. And we get exactly what we got earlier. It works out. They work the exact same. Okay? And let's look also at let's look at this guy. 5 times 10 to the negative 2. 5 second e, so times 10 to the negative 2 times 5 times 10 to the 2, and we get 20 or 2.5 times 10 to the 1st, which is the same thing as just 25. So it still works. It comes out pretty clean, pretty easy. And now let's do just one final third one, just for sake of practice with some negative exponents. Let's say we're multiplying this mass of an electron by this mass of a proton here. And so we have this 9.11 times 10 to the negative 31st multiplied by, and I don't have to deal with parentheses because I'm doing it this way. If you are choosing to use a different way and you have like a times somewhere in here, like you're actually hitting this times button, you will actually have to go over and you'll have to insert a parentheses and then close parentheses to actually make sure that stays grouped together as its own kind of separate entity. And then you'd multiply it by our 1.67 times 10 to the negative 27th power. And we end up getting just what we expected. 1.52, they give us more significant figures than we actually should be keeping. 1.52 times 10 to the negative 57. So it all works out, and that's how to do these on a calculator. If you're using a different kind of calculator, or if you have trouble with it, please let me know. You might be able to just find a quick tutorial also video going over it. So thank you very much.